You're not exhausted because you're lazy. You're exhausted because you're trying to live a complex life with no structure holding it up. Think about your last week. You woke up already behind, checked your phone before you even left the bed, put out fires you didn't start, scrolled when you were supposed to focus, promised yourself you'd fix it on Monday, and you're still tired. Everyone tells you the same solution. Grind harder, sleep less, buy another planner, force yourself to be disciplined. But what if your problem isn't discipline at all? What if you're not broken? Your system is. For most of history, men didn't rely on motivation to get things done. Samurai, craftsmen, monks, they weren't waking up hoping to feel inspired. They lived inside structures that carried them, even on days they felt empty. Their routines were less about willpower and more about architecture. Somewhere between smartphones, notifications, and do what you feel, that architecture disappeared. You're left with pressure and expectations, but no invisible frame holding everything together. So you try to power everything with raw effort, and your mind burns out. In this video, we're going to uncover the hidden system ancient Japanese warriors and masters used to protect their energy, focus their attention, and make progress feel automatic, and how you can rebuild a modern version around your own life. You don't need more motivation. You need a structure that makes the right actions the default, and it starts with the one question almost no one asks at the beginning of their day. Chapter 1. The real source of exhaustion. Not what you think. Most people think they're tired because they work too much. Long hours, too many responsibilities, not enough sleep. That's the story you've been sold. But your real exhaustion doesn't come from effort. It comes from confusion. Watch what actually happens on a normal day. You wake up and your brain is instantly hit with decisions. Check messages or shower first. Coffee at home or on the way. Answer that email now or pretend you didn't see it. Start the big project or clear the small tasks. None of these seem like a big deal on their own, but every choice burns a tiny amount of fuel. Psychologists call it cognitive load. Your brain can only hold so many open tabs at once before everything starts lagging. The problem isn't just what you do, it's how many times you have to stop and think before doing it. That constant, "what now?" is what drains you. Look at a guy like Adrian. On paper, he's doing everything right. He has a decent job, a gym membership, a side project he wants to build, but his day is chaos. He wakes up, scrolls, answers random messages, reacts to whatever feels urgent, then wonders why he's exhausted by lunch. It's not because he's weak. It's because his mind is stuck in reaction mode. Every notification pulls him sideways. Every new task interrupts the last one. His brain never gets to sink into deep focus. It's like trying to run a marathon while someone taps your shoulder every 10 seconds. You're not just moving forward, you're constantly restarting. This is the part nobody tells you. Your energy doesn't just die from work. It dies from constant micro-decisions, from switching tasks, from never having a clear path. You're living in a mental traffic jam. Even when you're sitting still, your mind is stuck in stop-and-go mode. And here's the brutal truth. The collapse doesn't start at 3 p.m. when you crash at your desk. It starts much earlier, in the quiet moment where one simple question shows you how unprepared you really are. What do I do today? By the time you're asking that, you've already lost the first battle of the day. But the men who understood this centuries ago handled their mornings in a completely different way. Chapter 2. The lost concept of Kihon-kei. The foundation pattern. Centuries before productivity apps and morning routines, warriors and artisans in Japan understood something we've almost completely forgotten. Your day is already decided before you take your first step. They called it Kihon-kei, the fundamental form. In martial arts, you don't start by freestyling. You repeat the same basic pattern again and again until your body knows what to do before your mind even thinks. There is a default movement, a default stance, a default response. That form becomes your baseline. Most people today have no baseline. They don't have a default day, only default chaos. They wake up, and every morning is a fresh improvisation. Sometimes they meditate, sometimes they scroll for 40 minutes, sometimes they start a project, sometimes they just react to whatever yells the loudest. There is no pattern, only pressure. Imagine a carpenter walking into his workshop with no order, tools in random drawers, wood piled everywhere, no clear spot to work. He would spend half his time just looking for things. That's how most people live mentally. No defined structure, no repeated pattern that tells the brain, this is what we do first. This is how we move. Kihon-kei is the opposite. It says before you think about goals, before you chase motivation, you build a simple, repeatable shape for your day. A skeleton, a frame, a base script your life can default to, even when you're stressed, tired, or unmotivated. This isn't some complicated 27-step morning checklist. It's the core pattern that never changes. For a swordsman, it might be wake, stretch, basic cuts, footwork. For a monk, wake, clean, chant, sit. For you, it might be wake, water, movement. One block of focused work, always in the same order, always anchored to the same start. Once that form exists, your brain stops waking up in a panic. There is no "what do I do today?" There is only, we begin with the pattern. That alone removes a huge amount of invisible stress. But here's where modern life twists the knife. Even when people try to build a foundation, they get attacked from a direction they don't expect. It's not just their schedule that's unstable. It's their entire sense of identity. Chapter 3. The Modern Trap. Identity without structure. Modern culture tells you to find yourself. Sounds deep, but there's a problem. Most people are trying to build an identity on top of a life with no structure. It's like trying to hang a painting on a wall that doesn't exist. Look at how we talk now. I'm a creative. I'm a disciplined person. I'm an entrepreneur. We collect labels like trophies, but when you zoom in on the day-to-day reality, those identities collapse under the slightest pressure, because there's no frame underneath them. Take someone like Marcus. He's obsessed with self-improvement. He journals. He buys courses. He watches every productivity video that hits his feed. He calls himself driven. But his actual life, no consistent start time, no fixed work blocks, no environment that forces him to focus. His identity is heavy, but his structure is light. So every Sunday he feels hyped, and by Thursday he's drowning again. This is the trap almost everyone falls into: identity without architecture. You tell yourself a story about who you are, but the way you live doesn't support that story. And when your behavior contradicts your identity, you don't just feel tired, you feel ashamed. You start to think, maybe I'm just not that kind of person. Maybe I'm not built for this. Maybe other people just have stronger willpower. But it's not that deep. You're not failing because your soul is weak. You're failing because you're trying to be a disciplined person in a setup that makes discipline almost impossible. You keep looking inward for the problem, when part of the answer is lying quietly all around you. In your room, your desk, your phone, your habits of where you sit and what you see. Ancient warriors knew this. Monks knew this. Craftsmen knew this. Craftsmen knew this. They didn't rely on a strong mindset floating in the air. They built physical patterns around themselves that made their identity real. The swordsman's dojo, the monk's temple, the craftsman's bench. These weren't just locations. They were silent machines that shaped behavior. We flipped it. We try to brute force focus in environments designed for distraction. We call ourselves disciplined while living inside digital slot machines. Then we blame ourselves when it doesn't work. If you've ever wondered why you feel powerful for a few days and then somehow slide right back into old patterns, this is why. Your identity might be aiming north, but your environment is dragging you south. And in that tug of war, the environment wins almost every time. Because no matter how strong you think you are, there's one thing you will never consistently defeat with willpower alone: the space you live in. Chapter 4. Introducing Jikū-Seiri, time-space arrangement. You're not losing to laziness, you're losing to layout. In Japan, there's a concept called Jikū-Seiri, organizing time and space together. Not just cleaning your room, not just scheduling your day, but aligning where you are with what you're supposed to become in that moment. The old masters understood something brutal. Your environment is not neutral. It's either training you or draining you. Think about your current setup. You try to work at the same desk where you game, scroll, watch videos, and argue in group chats. Your brain doesn't see work mode. It sees a highlight reel of every distraction you've ever opened in that chair. You're asking your mind to enter deep focus in a place it associates with dopamine hits and escape. That's not discipline. That's self-sabotage with nice lighting. Behavior researchers have a simple phrase for this context cues. Your brain links places and objects with actions. Couch equals relax. Bed equals sleep or scroll. Desk equals everything. No wonder your focus is fried. There was a developer I'll call Daniel. He kept saying he had focus issues. He tried supplements, time-blocking apps, noise-canceling headphones. Nothing stuck. He'd sit down to code and somehow end up bouncing between tabs, chats, and news. Sound familiar? One day, instead of blaming his brain, he turned to Jikū-Seiri. He changed nothing about his goals and everything about his setup. He rotated his desk to face a blank wall, closed all unrelated apps before starting, put his phone in another room, kept only 3 things in front of him: laptop, notebook, glass of water. No clutter, no alternate paths. The first week felt strange, boring even, but then something clicked. His sessions got longer. His code quality went up. He started finishing work earlier, with more energy left over. Same man, same skills, same willpower, different space. Jikū-Seiri isn't aesthetic minimalism. It's psychological engineering. It asks, when I sit here at this time, what behavior does this scene pull me toward? If the answer is scrolling, you don't need more grit. You need a different scene, because even once your environment supports you, there's still a silent enemy waiting at the end of every day, a force that slowly tears down any system you build if you don't confront it. Chapter 5. The Collapse Point. Daily Entropy. You don't just get tired from what you do, you get tired from what you leave unfinished. Every day, tiny fragments of unfinished tasks cling to your mind. Open tabs, half-written messages, projects you'll get back to later. You close the laptop, but your brain doesn't close with it. That leftover mental noise has a name in psychology: cognitive residue. And it stacks up quietly until your mind feels like a room you don't even want to walk into. Here's how it usually plays out. Monday, you're motivated. You start 3 new things. You answer messages. Halfway, you leave a couple of browser tabs open, just in case. No big deal. By Wednesday, your desktop looks like a museum of yesterday's good intentions. Tabs everywhere. Drafts, notes, brain crumbs. Each one is a tiny demand. Finish me. Don't forget me. You said you'd come back. You sit down to work, and before you can even start something new, you have to push through the mess of what you didn't complete. That's why you feel heavy before you've done anything. You're not starting from zero. You're starting in debt. This is entropy, the natural slide toward disorder. It doesn't just apply to physics. It applies to your life. Systems don't fall apart because of one big event. They decay through 1,000 small moments where you say, I'll deal with it later. Later becomes never. Never becomes chaos. By Friday, people say, I'm so burnt out. I need the weekend to reset. But they're not resetting. They're escaping. The digital clutter stays. The unfinished tasks wait. The brain knows the mess is still there, so even rest doesn't feel like rest. it feels like hiding. This is why your routines die after 1 or 2 weeks. It's not that they were bad routines, it's that you never built in a way to repair them. You expected your system to maintain itself while you were busy using it. That's like swinging a sword in battle and never sharpening it, never cleaning it, never checking for cracks, then being surprised when it snaps. Ancient warriors and craftsmen didn't make that mistake. They understood a brutal rule. If you don't deliberately close the day stays open inside you. So they developed something almost no one talks about now. A final ritual, a non-negotiable phase at the end of every session. Not for productivity, for survival. And it might be the one habit that decides whether your life slowly collapses or quietly compounds. Chapter 6. Saimatsu, the daily closure ritual. In traditional Japanese crafts, there's a quiet phase almost nobody sees. After the performance, after the work, after the visible result, comes Saimatsu, the closing ritual for a swordsman. The fight ends when the enemy falls, but the day doesn't end until the blade is wiped clean, inspected, and returned to its place. For a calligrapher, the piece is finished when the ink dries, but the practice isn't done until the brushes are washed, the desk is cleared, and the tools are lined up for tomorrow. Saimatsu isn't about being neat, it's about protecting tomorrow from today's chaos. Now compare that with how most of us end our days. You finish a chunk of work, you sigh, you slam the lid of your laptop, and walk away. Mentally, you're done. Physically, everything is left mid-air. Files open, notes scattered, tabs everywhere. No clear marker of what was finished and what wasn't. The workday ends with a vanish, not a closure. Then tomorrow hits. You sit down, and the first thing you see is yesterday's wreckage. Unnamed documents, half-done tasks, messages you forgot to answer. Your brain has to rebuild the context from scratch. What was I doing? Where did I leave this? What's the next step? By the time you get back into the flow, half your willpower is gone. This is why some mornings feel like trying to start a car that's been left out in the snow all winter. Saimatsu flips that. It turns the last 10-15 minutes of your workday into the most strategically important minutes you have. Instead of fleeing the desk, you perform a closing shift. You reset the space, clear the desk, close the junk tabs, leave only what matters. You reset the plan, write down what you finished, and the very first step for tomorrow. Not a huge to-do list, just the next move. You reset the mind, capture the stray thoughts, worries, and ideas so they live on paper, not in your nervous system. When you do this consistently, something strange happens. Mornings stop feeling like a rescue mission. You open your laptop, and you're not greeted by chaos. You're greeted by a clear starting line. You're not asking, where do I even begin? You're saying, I already told myself what to do. Let's move. Saimatsu is how you protect your future self from your tired self. It's the difference between ending the day by collapsing and ending the day by quietly handing tomorrow a loaded weapon and a clear map. But even with a foundation, a supportive environment, and a closing ritual, there's one more layer most people ignore. The rhythm underneath all of it. And if you get that wrong, even the best system will eventually tear you apart from the inside. Chapter 7. The real reason men burn out. Life without flow cycles. Humans are not machines. You can't run flat out at one speed forever. You are built for cycles. Rise, act, recover, reset. When you ignore that, you don't just get tired. You lose your sense of direction. Think about the times you've said, I'll just push through. No breaks, no real ending, no clear start. Days blur together into one long smear of work, distraction, guilt, and half rest. You're either on in a stressed way or off in a numb way. There's no clean switch between them. Ancient warriors and monks understood something we rarely talk about. Discipline isn't a straight line. It's a loop. Preparation, focused execution, intentional recovery, closure, then repeat. Most modern men live like this. Wake up late, panic, rush, react all day, collapse, escape with screens, sleep badly, repeat. There is no conscious preparation, no real execution block, no real recovery, no closure, just survival. There was a guy named Elias who prided himself on being a hard worker. He was always doing something. Late-night emails, weekend tasks, endless catching up. From the outside, he looked committed. Inside, he felt permanently exhausted and weirdly stuck. When he finally stepped back, he realized something brutal. He never fully entered any mode. His work time was polluted with distractions. His rest time was polluted with anxiety about work. His evenings leaked into his nights. He wasn't living in cycles. He was living in one endless gray smear. No wonder his brain never felt rested enough to go deep. Flow isn't just about getting into the zone for a few magical minutes. It's about respecting the entire loop. You set the foundation, Kihon-kei. You align your space and time. Jikū-Seiri. You execute in clear blocks that actually end. You close and reset. Saimatsu. When those phases are clear, your nervous system can trust the rhythm. It knows when to be sharp and when it's safe to exhale. That trust is what allows deep focus to show up again and again, without burning you out. Get this wrong, and even the best system turns into another prison. Get it right, and something powerful happens. Your life stops feeling like a constant firefight, and starts feeling like a practiced kata, a repeated form that makes you stronger every time you move through it. And that's where everything comes together into something you can actually live by. A modern version of an ancient loop that quietly separates those who are constantly drowning from those who finally feel like they're being carried. Final chapter. The hidden system. The modern Bushido Loop. Most people think the gap between them and the life they want is made of motivation, or more hustle, more willpower, more try harder. But look closely at your own patterns, and you'll see something different. When your life falls apart, it's almost never because you didn't care enough. It's because your architecture couldn't carry the weight of your intentions. The men who understood this didn't rely on vibes and willpower spikes. They relied on loops, a living system that ran underneath their emotions. Call it a modern Bushido loop if you want, not swords and armor, but a quiet code that runs your day for you. It looks like this: Kihon-kei, your fundamental form. A simple, repeatable pattern your day defaults to, even when you're tired. Jikū-Seiri, your time and space aligned, so each place and hour pulls you toward the right behavior instead of the wrong one. Saimatsu, the closing ritual that pays off the debt of each day, so tomorrow starts clean instead of buried. And over it all, the cycle: prepare, execute, recover, reset. Again and again, until the loop becomes who you are. When all of this is in place, you stop living as a firefighter and start living as an architect. You're no longer powering everything by hand. The system begins to move you. Instead of asking, "How do I force myself to be disciplined?" you start asking, "What tiny change would make the disciplined choice automatic?" Instead of wondering whether you're built for this, you quietly adjust the frame you live inside. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If your life keeps collapsing every few weeks, it's not a sign that you're weak. It's a sign that your setup can't survive real pressure. And that's fixable. You don't need another motivational speech. You don't need to become a different person overnight. You need to build one loop, one small, repeatable system that makes tomorrow slightly easier than today. Set the form, shape the space, close the day, respect the cycle. Do that long enough, and you'll look back and realize something shocking. The version of you you've been trying to feel like for years quietly showed up the moment you stopped improvising your life and started designing it.